The Versace coat hung like a prophecy in our stockroom, though I didn't know it yet. Black cashmere with gold threading, $8,000 of Italian craftsmanship that would ultimately cost my wife everything she'd built. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Stories like mine, stories of betrayal and poetic justice, they need to start at the beginning when you still believe in things like trust and partnership and the sacred bond of marriage. My name is James Thornton, and until 6 months ago, I managed my wife's high-end boutique in Charleston's most exclusive shopping district. Victoria's Velvet sat between a Rolex dealer and an art gallery that sold paintings worth more than most people's houses. The rent alone could have fed a small village for a year, but Victoria insisted that luxury retail was all about location, perception, and what she called aspirational adjacency. James, darling, she'd say, in that peculiar accent she'd developed. Not quite British, not quite Southern, but something she'd crafted like one of her window displays. Our clients don't just buy clothes, they buy proximity to excellence. I'd nod and return to my spreadsheets, the endless columns of numbers that told the real story of Victoria's Velvet. 5 years ago, I'd left my position as senior accountant at Morrison Blackwood and Associates to help her build this dream. She had the vision, the taste, the connections. I had the financial acumen and, more importantly, the credit score that made the initial lease possible. "You're the only man I trust with my dreams," she'd whispered. That night we signed the papers. Her perfume, always Chanel No. 5, making me dizzy with possibility. Together, we'll build an empire. Empires, I've learned, are often built on foundations of sand. The morning everything changed started like any other Thursday. October in Charleston carries a particular kind of light, golden and heavy, like honey poured through antique glass. I arrived at the boutique at 7:30, an hour before opening, to receive a shipment from one of our regular suppliers. The delivery guys knew me well enough by now to joke about my coffee addiction. "Morning, Mr. T," Marcus called out, wheeling in boxes on a hand truck. "Got your Italian stuff here." That Alessandro guy, he sure knows how to pack things fancy. Alessandro Rossi. Even hearing his name now makes my jaw clench, though at the time I thought of him as nothing more than one of our better suppliers. He specialized in leather goods, handbags, belts, small accessories that carried markup percentages that would make a casino owner blush. 4 times a year, he'd fly in from Milan with his collection previews, staying at the Bellman Hotel 3 blocks away. "The European way of doing business," Victoria always said, "is about relationships, not just transactions." She'd studied Italian, she told me, back in college. Just enough to handle negotiations to make our European suppliers feel comfortable. During Alessandro's visits, she'd often work late, cataloging new pieces, she said, determining optimal pricing strategies. I'd bring her dinner some nights, finding her surrounded by tissue paper and boxes, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she examined stitching with a jeweler's loop. "You work too hard," I'd tell her. "Success demands sacrifice, darling," she'd reply, not looking up. The Thursday that changed everything, I was conducting our monthly inventory. It's tedious work, scanning barcodes, checking items against our database, ensuring our insurance documentation was current. Victoria usually handled the floor during inventory days, charming customers while I counted and cataloged in the back. The Versace coat was the third item I processed that morning. New arrival, not yet tagged for the floor. As I lifted it to check the inner label for care instructions, something crinkled. The sound was distinct, paper, but not the usual tissue paper we used. Curious, I reached into the inner pocket, the one designed for cigarettes or theater tickets in a more elegant era. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive stationery with a watermark I couldn't identify. No address on the outside, just Victoria, written in fountain pen ink. The kind of blue-black that comes from those $300 pens Alessandro always carried. I should have put it back. Should have walked out to the floor and handed it to my wife with a casual, "Found this in the new inventory." Should have, but didn't. Because 12 years of marriage teaches you to recognize the tremor frequencies of your own intuition, and mine was suddenly screaming. The letter was in Italian. Of course it was. I pulled out my phone, opened Google Translate, and began typing, word by careful word. My high school Spanish helped a little. Some words were similar. But technology did most of the work. As the English translation appeared on my screen, I felt something inside me break. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, like ice beginning to crack under spring sun. My dearest Victoria, it began. Only 6 more weeks until Milan. 6 more weeks of this charade, and then we can stop pretending. Your husband suspects nothing. Americans are so trusting, so naive about matters of the heart. I've prepared everything as we discussed. The workspace in my showroom is ready. The apartment in Navigli has been furnished to your specifications. I even found that antique mirror you admired in the photograph, the one with the gilt roses. I sat down on a box of unpacked inventory, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. The letter continued, each translated sentence another twist of the knife. 18 months we've been planning this, my love. 18 months of careful deception, of building our future while your fool of a husband counts receipts. He thinks my low prices are a European friendship discount. If only he knew the true currency of our transactions. The letter went on to describe their planned escape, how she would announce a buying trip to Europe, how she'd already been moving money, our money, into accounts he'd helped her establish. How the lease being in my name was actually perfect, as it would trap me with the debt while she started fresh. Leave the American fool with his receipts and his spreadsheets, it concluded. We have a life of passion waiting for us. All my love, Alessandro. The date on the letter was 2 days ago. He must have written it in his hotel room, probably after one of their late-night inventory sessions, and forgotten he'd slipped it into the coat pocket. Such a small mistake, but then, empires have fallen for less. I sat in that stockroom for an hour. Maybe more. Time becomes elastic when your world is collapsing. I wasn't crying. That would come later. I was calculating. Not emotionally, but mathematically, the way I'd been trained to do. Assets and liabilities, credits and debits, the brutal arithmetic of betrayal. First, I pulled up our business accounts on my laptop. I had full access, of course. I managed the books. But now I knew what to look for. The patterns emerged like a photograph in developer fluid. European supplier fees that didn't match any invoices. Currency adjustment charges that happened to align with Alessandro's visits. Sample purchases that never appeared in inventory. Over 18 months, she'd siphoned off nearly $200,000. She'd been smart about it, keeping each transaction below the threshold that would trigger automatic alerts. But she'd forgotten that I'd designed our accounting system. I knew every backdoor, every audit trail. Within an hour, I had a complete financial map of her deception. The lease was in my name. She'd needed my credit score, my financial history. The business licenses, the insurance policies, all in my name. But the inventory itself was technically company property, and as acting manager with full signatory power, I had certain authorities she'd probably forgotten about in her passion-drunk planning. I made my decision sitting there, surrounded by luxury goods that suddenly seemed as hollow as my marriage. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't rage or plead or try to win her back. I would do what I did best. Manage inventory. The first call I made was to Patricia Hendricks at Dress for Success Charleston. Patricia and I had known each other for years. She was actually my cousin, though Victoria never bothered to remember that detail. James. Patricia's voice was warm as honey. To what do I owe the pleasure? Patricia, I have a proposition for you. How would Dress for Success like to receive a substantial donation of high-end women's clothing and accessories? There was a pause. Define substantial. Everything. The entire inventory of Victoria's velvet. The silence stretched longer this time. James, is everything all right? It will be, I said. Can you have trucks at the boutique Saturday morning, 5 a.m.? That's 2 days from now. Yes. And Patricia, bring multiple trucks. You'll need them. My next calls were to the Charleston Veterans Foundation and the Holy City Homeless Coalition. Same conversation, same disbelief, same agreement. 3 charities, 3 trucks. One morning that would redefine the concept of charitable giving in Charleston society. I spent the rest of Thursday and all of Friday preparing. I photographed every single item in the store, documenting everything for insurance purposes. I downloaded all our security footage to a personal drive. I created detailed inventory lists with retail values. And I drafted a donation receipt that would stand up in any court in the country. The language was important. As acting manager with signatory authority, I was making an executive decision to donate aging inventory for tax purposes. All perfectly legal, all completely binding. Friday evening, Victoria mentioned she had a spa appointment Saturday morning. The usual? I asked, not looking up from my laptop. The full treatment, she said. I need to de-stress. Alessandro's coming next week, and these preview weeks are always exhausting. Take your time, I said. You deserve it. She kissed my forehead absently, already mentally elsewhere. Probably in Milan, in that apartment in Navigli with the antique mirror. Don't wait up tonight. I need to review the European accounts. Of course. That night, I slept in the guest room, claiming I was coming down with something and didn't want to get her sick before her spa day. In reality, I couldn't bear to lie next to her, knowing what I knew, planning what I planned. Saturday morning, my alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. Victoria didn't stir. She'd taken her usual Ambien, the ones she thought I didn't know about. I dressed quietly in jeans and a polo shirt, casual clothes for a casual destruction of everything she'd built on a foundation of lies. The trucks arrived exactly at 5. I had coffee and donuts waiting, good ones from Brown's Bakery because the volunteers deserved better than chain store pastries for what they were about to do. Mr. Thornton, Patricia said, climbing out of the first truck. She was dressed for work, her silvering hair pulled back in a ponytail. You're really doing this? Every last piece, I confirmed, handing her the donation receipt to sign. The volunteers' reactions as we began loading were something I'll treasure forever. These were people accustomed to receiving corporate cast-offs, last season's mistakes, the clothes that wouldn't sell. Instead, they were carefully packing Hermes bags with tissue paper, wrapping Chanel suits in protective plastic, cushioning Louboutin shoes like precious artifacts. Sir, one young volunteer said, holding a beaded Valentino gown, this still has the tags. $8,000. That'll help someone feel confident at a job interview, I said. A job interview? Or maybe a charity gala. You never know where life will take you. We worked with quiet efficiency, the volunteers understanding that something momentous was happening, even if they didn't know the details. Box after box, rack after rack, the boutique emptied like a magic trick in reverse. Even the mannequins went, their elegant poses now destined for charity shop windows. The display cases, the gilt-edged mirrors, the Persian rug that Victoria had spent 3 months selecting. What about this? Marcus, the delivery driver who decided to help out, held up the Versace coat. That stays, I said. It goes on special display. By 7:30, the boutique was completely empty except for 3 things. A folding card table I'd brought from our garage, a metal folding chair, and the Versace coat hanging on a single remaining rack. The space echoed like a cavern, our footsteps bouncing off bare walls that had once held paintings of fashion icons. I'd prepared a sign, hand-lettered on poster board with the same attention to detail Victoria put into her window displays. Closed for remodeling of values. James, Patricia said quietly, surveying the empty space. The retail value of what you've donated. $2.3 million, I said, give or take. You know this will make the news. I'm counting on it. At 8 o'clock sharp, I posted on Victoria's Velvet's Instagram account. She'd built quite a following. 23,000 followers who loved her curated vision of Southern luxury. The post was simple. A photo of the empty boutique and the caption, "Proud to announce Victoria's Velvet has donated entire inventory to Charleston charities. Every piece finds a new home with someone who needs it more. Charleston gives, blessed to give, new beginnings." I tagged every local news station, every fashion blogger, every society reporter who'd ever covered the boutique. Then I sat back in my folding chair and waited. The digital explosion was immediate. Within minutes, the post had hundreds of likes and dozens of comments. Is this real? OMG amazing. This is why we love Charleston. The shares started multiplying exponentially. Someone at Channel 4 must have been scrolling social media with their morning coffee, because by 8:45, a news van was pulling up outside. I stayed inside, visible through the glass doors but not engaging. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let the story build its own momentum. By 10 o'clock, the post had 10,000 likes and had been shared over 3,000 times. Empty Boutique was trending locally. The news vans had multiplied, channels 4, 7, and 11, plus a crew from the local NPR station. High-end shoppers were arriving for their Saturday browsing, only to find cameras and an empty store. I watched it all from my folding chair, the Versace coat hanging behind me like a banner of victory. At 10:27, Victoria's Tesla pulled up. I could see her through the glass doors, confused by the media presence. She was wearing her spa robe over yoga clothes, her hair still wrapped in a towel. She must have gotten calls, notifications, something that pulled her away from her hot stone massage. A reporter reached her first. "Mrs. Thornton, tell us about this incredible donation. $2 million worth of inventory to local charities?" I watched her face cycle through emotions like a slot machine looking for a winning combination. Confusion, alarm, then a forced smile as she realized she was on camera. "I believe in giving back to the community," she managed. "Was this planned for a while?" another reporter asked. "My husband and we've always been charitable." She was good, I had to give her that. Even in complete confusion, she could perform. But then she saw through the doors. Saw the empty space where her empire had stood. Saw me sitting at a card table in the middle of nothing. The scream that escaped her lips became instantly memeable. Someone had been live streaming, and within hours that sound would be remixed into dance tracks and set to reaction videos. But in the moment, it was pure, primal rage. She burst through the doors, the reporters following like remora fish. "What have you done? What have you done?" I held up the letter, still in its cream envelope. "I found your correspondence." Her face went white. Whiter than the spa facial had made it. "James." "It's in Italian," I continued conversationally. "But Google Translate is remarkable these days. Would you like me to read it aloud? I'm sure the reporters would be interested in your European expansion plans." The reporters were pressing against the glass now, cameras rolling, microphones extended like offerings to the gods of drama. Victoria looked around wildly, calculating, trying to find an angle, an escape. "You had no right," she hissed. "This is my store." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "as acting manager with full signatory authority, I had every right to make executive decisions about inventory disposal. You signed that authorization yourself, January 15th of last year. You were in a hurry to get to a wine tasting, if I recall." "I'll sue you. I'll destroy you." "With what lawyers?" I asked. "The ones you were planning to pay with the money you've been embezzling?" "Oh yes, I found all of that too." Every transaction, every fake invoice, every currency adjustment that went straight to your private account. The reporters were practically vibrating with excitement now. This was the kind of story that won regional Emmys, that got picked up by national affiliates. Victoria's phone rang. She answered it automatically, her hands shaking. Alessandro? I could hear his voice from where I sat, rapid Italian, clearly panicked. She put him on speaker, a mistake born of shock. Victoria, what's happening? I'm seeing things online. The store, it's empty? And someone's posted a letter? My letter? How is this possible? You left it in the coat, I called out helpfully. The Versace, $8,000 of evidence. There was silence on the other end. Then a stream of Italian profanity that needed no translation. Alessandro, Victoria pleaded. It's fine, we can still… A new voice cut in. Female, authoritative, and very Italian. Alessandro, who are you talking to? Is this your American? Sophia? Victoria's voice cracked. Why are you… I'm his wife, Sophia said in perfectly accented English. And I've just finished reading this very interesting letter that's now all over the internet. Tell me, Victoria, were you planning to work in my family's showroom? In the building my grandfather built? With my husband? The sound that came through the phone next was either a slap or a door slamming, possibly both. You want him? Sophia continued. Take him. But know this, he has nothing. The business is mine. The properties are mine. The accounts are mine. He is welcome to love you with empty pockets. Arrivederci. The line went dead. Victoria stood in the middle of her empty boutique, phone in hand, reporters watching through glass, her entire world collapsing in real time. It was almost enough to make me feel sorry for her. Almost. The lease, she said suddenly, grasping at straws. The lease is in your name. You'll have to pay $18,000 a month, I agreed, for 5 more years. Unless, of course, the lease is transferred as part of the divorce settlement. Which reminds me, I pulled out another document. I filed this morning, at 4:59 a.m. to be precise, just before the donation. The boutique was listed as a marital asset at that time. Then, 1 minute later, it became a charitable contribution. Interesting how timing works. You planned this. It wasn't a question. I managed it, I corrected, just like I've managed everything else while you were managing your Italian lover. The door chimed as someone entered. Mrs. Governor's wife, I never did learn her first name, swept in wearing Chanel sunglasses despite the October clouds. Victoria, darling, I'm here for my Dior bag, the one you were holding for. She trailed off, taking in the empty space, the cameras outside, Victoria in her spa robe. What's happened? Your bag has been donated to Dress for Success, I said, handing her a business card I'd had printed. Someone who really needs it will use it for job interviews. Tax-deductible receipt available upon request. She looked at the card, at me, at Victoria, then outside at the cameras. Like any good politician's wife, she immediately understood the optics. How wonderful, she declared loudly enough for the microphones to pick up. Victoria, you should have told me you were doing something this generous. I would have contributed from my own closet. And with that, she swept back out, already on her phone, probably calling her publicist to figure out how to capitalize on her association with this act of charity. The next few hours were a blur of arrivals. Judge Thompson's daughter, looking for her wedding dress fitting. The country club president, expecting to pick up auction items. Each one found the same thing: an empty store, a simple business card, and a story that would dominate Charleston society gossip for months. I'd prepared for this, of course. Every customer who'd had an items on hold or an alteration received the same message. Their pieces had been donated to worthy causes, and they were welcome to claim a tax deduction for their contribution to charity. It was brilliant in its simplicity. No one could complain without looking uncharitable. By noon, the empty boutique had become a pilgrimage site. People were taking selfies in front of the windows, posing with the "closed for remodeling of values" sign. Someone started a TikTok challenge where you stood in an empty room and declared what toxic thing you were donating from your life. Victoria had long since fled, but not before trying one last gambit. She'd called the police claiming theft. Officer Reynolds, whom I'd known since our kids played Little League together, back when we thought we'd have kids, took her statement with professional patience. "Ma'am, do you have any documentation that suggests the inventory was taken without authorization?" "He's my husband. He can't just—" "Actually," Officer Reynolds said, reviewing the donation receipts I'd provided, "as acting manager with signatory authority, Mr. Thornton appears to have operated within his legal rights. These are legitimate charitable donations with proper documentation." "But it's my store." "The lease is in his name, ma'am. The insurance is in his name. The business licenses show him as co-owner with management authority. Unless you can show me documentation that explicitly prevents him from making inventory decisions." She couldn't, of course, because she'd been so focused on her escape plan that she'd never bothered to protect what she was leaving behind. The story went national by evening. "Husband donates cheating wife's entire boutique to charity" was the general headline, though some got creative. The New York Post went with "empty vessels," while someone at BuzzFeed created "this man donated his wife's entire store and the internet can't even." But the best part, the part that still makes me smile, came later that evening. Patricia called from the homeless shelter. "James, you need to see this." She sent me a photo. It was from their emergency shelter where they'd set up a boutique area with some of the donated items. A woman who'd lost everything in a house fire was trying on the Valentino gown, the one with $8,000 worth of beading. She was crying, but smiling, looking at herself in a mirror they'd installed. "She has a job interview Monday," Patricia explained, "for a position at a law firm. She was going to wear her only suit, the one she'd been sleeping in. Now she says she feels like she can conquer the world." What about the rest? "We're holding an auction next week. The items are too valuable to just give away. We can help so many more people with the proceeds. James, we're estimating we'll raise at least $400,000. That's enough to fund our programs for 2 years." The auction was a sensation. Charleston society couldn't resist the opportunity to buy pieces from the infamous empty boutique story. The bidding was fierce, prices exceeding retail in some cases. The Herms bags in particular started a bidding war between two prominent families who'd been feuding for generations. But the moment that turned the event from auction to legend came when Sophia Rossi walked in. She was exactly what you'd expect from Milanese old money. Elegant, understated, and absolutely terrifying. She bid on every single piece from Alessandro's collection, winning them all at absurdly high prices. "These belong in the hands of people who understand their value," she announced to the room. Then, in a gesture that had everyone recording on their phones, she immediately donated everything back to the shelter. "For the women who need to feel powerful," she said, looking directly at the news cameras. "Real power comes from generosity, not from stealing what belongs to others." The shelter raised $600,000 that night. They named their new job training facility the Thornton Center for Fresh Starts, which was embarrassing but touching. Victoria tried to salvage things, of course. She posted a tearful video on Instagram, claiming she'd been set up, that the donation had always been planned, that I'd twisted everything. The comments section destroyed her. Someone found Alessandro's LinkedIn, which showed him as seeking new opportunities. Someone else discovered that Victoria had been messaging at least 3 other men through the boutique's Instagram account. The lease became an albatross around her neck. $18,000 a month for an empty store that had become a tourist attraction. Ghost tour companies actually added it to their routes, though instead of supernatural spirits, they talked about the death of a marriage and the birth of a legend. This empty space, one tour guide would intone dramatically, reminds us that some voids can never be filled, and some betrayals echo forever. Victoria tried to sublet, but who wanted to rent a space known worldwide as the Empty Boutique? She tried to break the lease, but the contract I'd negotiated, because of course I'd handled that too, was ironclad. She even tried to sell the business, but what was she selling? The inventory was gone, the reputation was destroyed, and the only asset was a lease that cost more than most people's mortgages. Meanwhile, Alessandro discovered that his wife hadn't been joking about the money. Everything was hers through inheritance. The business, the properties, even the car he drove. He'd been essentially an employee with benefits, and now he was unemployed. The last anyone heard, he was working at a leather goods store in a Milan suburb, selling knockoff bags to tourists. 6 weeks after the emptying, the exact day Victoria had planned to leave for Milan, I held a grand opening for my new business. Honest Accounting, a forensic accounting firm specializing in catching embezzlement and fraud. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. My first client was Sophia Rossi. "I need someone to review my husband's books," she said over video call from Milan. "I suspect he's been stealing for years, not just from me, but from our suppliers, our customers. I need someone thorough, someone who understands how betrayal hides in spreadsheets." I found 3 million euros in hidden transactions. Alessandro, it turned out, had been cheating in every possible way. Sophia got it all back, plus penalties. She sent me a bottle of wine that cost more than my car, with a note, "To empty boutiques and full futures." The story became Charleston legend. You got Thorntoned, entered the lexicon, meaning you'd been caught cheating and lost everything in spectacularly public fashion. Boutique owners around the city started checking their inventory more carefully, especially items from European suppliers. "Check the pockets" became a catchphrase, printed on t-shirts sold at the Saturday market. The empty boutique itself became a permanent installation of sorts. Victoria couldn't afford to do anything with it, and I refused to let her out of the lease. Month after month, $18,000 disappeared into nothing, a perfect metaphor for what our marriage had become. People would press their faces against the glass, looking into the empty space. Someone created an art installation inside, with my permission, a single red dress on a mannequin that rotated slowly, eternally, window shopping in a store with nothing to sell. The artist called it Desire and Consequences. Local news did a 1-year anniversary special. They interviewed the women who'd received the donated clothes, showing how the items had changed their lives. The woman in the Valentino gown had gotten the law firm job and was now a junior partner. A veteran's wife had worn a Chanel suit to defend her dissertation and was now Dr. Williams. A formerly homeless teenager had sold a donated Hermes bag to pay for her first semester of college. They tried to interview Victoria, but she'd left Charleston by then. Moved to Atlanta, I heard, working as a personal shopper at Nordstrom. Still stylish, still put together, but no longer the owner of anything except her memories and her debt. They did interview me, standing in front of my successful accounting firm, business booming from clients who wanted someone who could spot deception in the details. "Do you regret destroying the boutique?" the reporter asked. "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "I transformed it. From a monument to deception into an opportunity for redemption." Every woman who walked into a job interview carrying a bag from Victoria's Velvet, every teenager who felt confident in donated designer clothes, every dollar raised for charity, that's not destruction. That's alchemy. Would you do it again? In a heartbeat, but with one change. What's that? I'd have checked the pockets sooner. The interview went viral, of course. Everything about the empty boutique did. It became a case study in business schools, a cautionary tale in marriage counseling, a legend in Charleston society. Someone wrote a song about it. Someone else created a podcast. Netflix really did buy the rights, though they insisted on adding a subplot where I had a secret lover too, which ruined the whole point. But the real ending, the one that matters, came 2 years later. Patricia called me on a Thursday morning. Another Thursday because apparently that's when my life changes. James, you need to come to the shelter. I found her in the job training center, the one named after me. She was standing with a young woman, maybe 25, who was wearing one of the donated suits. Not a designer piece, just a good solid suit that fit her perfectly. This is Maria, Patricia said. Tell him what you told me. Maria was nervous, clutching a portfolio. Mr. Thornton, I was here 2 years ago, the day you emptied the boutique. I was volunteering, helping load the trucks. I remembered her vaguely, a quiet girl who'd handled the shoes with particular care. I was homeless then, she continued. Had been for 6 months. Lost everything when my parents kicked me out. But that morning, watching you give everything away, seeing how empty spaces could become full of possibility, it changed something in me. She opened her portfolio. Inside were designs, fashion sketches, beautiful and bold and entirely original. I applied to fashion school with a letter about that morning, about transformation, about how true luxury isn't about labels but about lifting others. I got a full scholarship. I graduate next month. She pulled out a business plan, professionally bound. I want to open a boutique here in Charleston, but not like before. This one will sell clothes by local designers with half the profits going to job training programs. I want to rent the empty boutique space. I looked at Patricia, who was smiling like she'd won the lottery. The lease isn't up for another year, I said. I know. I've saved enough for the rent. And I have investors. Women who bought pieces at the auction. They want to be part of something new. I thought about Victoria, still paying for an empty space she'd never see again. Thought about Alessandro in his suburban strip mall. Thought about the letter in the Versace coat that had started it all. The space has a reputation, I warned. Exactly, Maria said. The empty boutique that became full of purpose. What better place for a store dedicated to lifting others? I signed the sublease that afternoon. Victoria would still be paying the master lease, but now that money would go towards something meaningful. The karma was so perfect, it felt scripted. Maria's boutique, Fresh Starts, opened 6 months later. The grand opening was attended by everyone who mattered in Charleston, plus Sophia Rossi, who flew in from Milan specifically for the event. She brought a collection of Italian accessories to sell on consignment, with proceeds going to the shelter. Empty spaces, she said in her speech, are just opportunities waiting to be filled with something better. I stood in the back, watching the space that had once held so much deception, now filled with hope and purpose. Maria had kept one thing from the original boutique: the gilt-edged mirror where Victoria had preened and adjusted her mask every morning. But now it held a placard. See yourself as you truly are. The Versace coat? I kept it. Not to wear, but as a reminder. It hangs in my office at the accounting firm, and sometimes clients ask about it. It's a long story, I always say. We've got time, they usually respond. So I tell them about the Thursday morning when I found a letter in Italian in a coat pocket, about empty boutiques and full hearts, about how sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction but transformation, about how checking the pockets, literally and metaphorically, can save you from a lifetime of deception. The story always ends the same way, with something Patricia told me that first Christmas after the emptying. We were at the shelter, serving dinner to families who'd lost everything but hadn't lost hope. She pulled me aside, watching the women trying on donated clothes for their children's school concerts, for job interviews, for first dates after escaping abusive relationships. You know what the real miracle was? She asked. What? That coat. That letter. Alessandro putting it in that specific pocket of that specific coat that you would specifically check. What are the odds? Lucky, I guess. She smiled, that knowing smile she'd had since we were kids. Luck had nothing to do with it. I saw them, James, at the Belmond Hotel 3 weeks before you found the letter. Saw them in the lobby, all over each other. I knew about the affair. You knew? I also knew you did inventory on Thursdays. Knew you always checked pockets for left-behind items. And I might have suggested to our mutual friend at Versace that the black cashmere coat would be perfect for Victoria's fall collection. Might have made sure it was hung front and center in the delivery. Patricia. Empty stores can be refilled, James. Empty hearts just echo. You deserved better than echoes. I think about that conversation often, about the interconnected web of choices and chances that led to that Thursday morning. About Patricia, who'd lost everything in her own divorce years before, carefully orchestrating justice. About Sophia, who'd known about her husband's affairs for years but needed proof. About Maria, who'd been sleeping in her car the night before she helped empty the boutique. All of us connected by emptiness, and all of us choosing to fill it with something better. The boutique still generates headlines occasionally. 5 years later, the empty boutique that changed Charleston. Victoria never responded to requests for comment. Alessandro apparently married a wealthy widow in Rome, though Sophia assures me the woman knows exactly what she's getting. The charity auction became an annual event, raising millions over the years. But the best story, the one that makes everything worth it, happened just last month. A young woman walked into my accounting firm, well-dressed, confident, carrying a portfolio. Mr. Thornton, I'm Sarah Chen. I'm here about the junior accountant position. I recognized her immediately, though she'd transformed completely. She'd been one of the homeless women at the shelter that morning, the one who'd carefully wrapped the Louboutin shoes like they were made of spun gold. I remember you, I said. You gave me a suit, she said. Not just any suit. A Armani suit that fit like it was made for me. I wore it to take my GED, then to community college entrance exams, then to university interviews. Same suit, 5 years, every important moment. It's hanging in my closet retired now, but I'll never throw it away. And now you're an accountant? Because of you. Because I watched you that morning, turning pain into purpose. I wanted to be someone who could spot the truth in numbers, who could help people protect themselves from deception. I hired her on the spot. She's brilliant, meticulous, and has an uncanny ability to spot discrepancies. Probably because she knows what it's like to have everything taken away. The empty boutique shaped all of us. Victoria, wherever she is, living with the knowledge that her empire was built on sand. Alessandro, learning that when you have nothing of your own, love isn't enough to sustain you. Sophia, who turned her husband's betrayal into a chance to reclaim her power. Patricia, who orchestrated justice from the shadows. Maria, who saw opportunity in emptiness. Sarah, who found her calling in the chaos. And me? I learned that sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't anger or violence or even confrontation. Sometimes it's simply removing yourself from the equation and letting the emptiness speak for itself. The Versace coat still hangs in my office, that $8,000 testament to the price of deception. Clients often ask if there's really a letter in the pocket. Check for yourself, I always say. They reach in, find the envelope, pull out the letter. I had it laminated, preserving it exactly as it was that Thursday morning. They read it, usually with widening eyes, then look at me with a mixture of awe and sympathy. She really thought she'd get away with it. She thought she was managing the situation, but she forgot who actually managed the books. Last week, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. The voice was familiar but older, tired. James? It was Victoria. I heard about the boutique, what Maria's doing with it. It's wonderful, I said, meaning it. I I wanted to apologize. Not for your forgiveness, I don't deserve that. But because I need to say it. I destroyed everything for nothing. Alessandro left me after 3 months. The money ran out. The life I thought I wanted was just another empty boutique. All surface, no substance. I'm sorry it didn't work out, I said, and surprisingly, I meant that too. Are you happy? She asked. I thought about my business, thriving on a reputation for truth. About the woman I'd been dating for 6 months, a prosecutor who appreciated honesty above all else. About the community work I did with Patricia, the lives we'd changed with donations that had once been symbols of deception. I'm full, I said. Not happy, not sad, just full. No empty spaces left. That's good, she said quietly. The empty spaces are the worst part. We hung up without goodbye. There was nothing left to say. The story of the empty boutique ends where it began, with a coat and a letter and a Thursday morning that changed everything. But it's not really about revenge, though that's how the headlines frame it. It's about the space between what we show the world and what we truly are. It's about the danger of building empires on foundations of deception. It's about the power of transforming emptiness into opportunity. Every morning, I drive past the boutique on my way to work. Fresh Starts is thriving. The windows full of local designs and hope. Sometimes I see Maria through the glass, adjusting displays, helping customers, building something real on the ground where illusions once stood. The tourists still come, wanting to see the famous empty boutique. Maria keeps a photo from that Saturday morning on the wall, the completely barren space with just a folding table and chair. Below it, a simple plaque. Every ending is a beginning in disguise. Charleston has embraced the legend, the way southern cities embrace their ghosts. The empty boutique has become part of our mythology, a cautionary tale wrapped in designer clothing and tied with a bow of justice. Wedding planners tell brides about it as a warning. Business schools teach it as a case study. Marriage counselors use it as an example. But for those of us who lived it, who were changed by it, the empty boutique is something else. It's proof that sometimes the universe conspires to reveal truth, that letters find their way into the right pockets, that cousins remember old wounds and orchestrate new justice, that empty spaces can become full of meaning if you're brave enough to clear out the lies. I still manage books, but now I manage them for people who want truth in their numbers. I still count inventory, but now I count blessings and opportunities. I still check pockets, but now I'm looking for possibilities, not deception. The Versace coat hangs in my office, worth $8,000 but priceless in its lessons. Sometimes when I'm working late, I look at it and remember that Thursday morning when everything changed. The weight of the letter in my hand. The sound of Italian being translated into truth. The moment I decided that empty was better than false. People ask if I regret giving everything away. If I wish I'd handled it differently. If I miss what we had built together. I tell them the truth. I didn't give anything away, I transformed it. Every designer bag became dignity for someone who'd lost theirs. Every expensive dress became confidence for someone starting over. Every donated item became a seed of possibility in someone else's garden. Victoria took $200,000 and 18 months of lies to Milan. I gave $2 million and 12 years of truth to Charleston. The math is simple when you know how to read the books. The empty boutique stands as a monument to that mathematics, to the calculating precision of karma and the compound interest of kindness. It reminds us that everything we build on lies will eventually stand empty, but everything we give in truth will multiply beyond our imagining. And sometimes, on Thursday mornings, when the light falls just right through my office windows, I take the letter out of the Versace coat and read it again. Not from bitterness or nostalgia, but as a reminder to check the pockets, a reminder that truth has a way of finding us, a reminder that empty spaces are just opportunities waiting to be filled with something better. The boutique is full again now, full of purpose and possibility, and the kind of fashion that empowers rather than deceives. But we still call it the empty boutique because some stories are too good to let go, and some lessons are too important to forget. And somewhere in Charleston, in closets and wardrobes and carefully preserved collections, hang the pieces from that legendary donation. Each one a reminder of the morning when one man's pain became a city's gain, when betrayal became benevolence, when an empty boutique became full of meaning. That's the real revenge, if revenge is even the right word. Not destruction, but transformation. Not emptiness, but opportunity. Not the ending of a story, but the beginning of 1,000 better ones. The Versace coat hangs in my office. $8,000 of Italian craftsmanship holding a letter that cost a marriage but built a legend. And sometimes when young accountants ask about it, when clients wonder about its significance, when visitors want to know if the story is really true, I tell them, check the pockets. You never know what truth you'll find there. And in Charleston, in the boutique that was empty and is now full, in the shelter named after an act of angry charity, in the closets of women who walked into new lives wearing donated designer clothes, the story continues. Not my story anymore, but theirs. The ones who filled the empty spaces with something real. That's the legacy of the empty boutique. Not the revenge, not the drama, not even the justice, but the proof that empty spaces are just invitations to begin again. And that sometimes the best thing you can do with a broken empire is give it away, piece by piece, until all that's left is the truth and the possibility of starting over. The coat hangs in my office. The letter sits in its pocket. The boutique stands full of new dreams. And every Thursday morning, I remember the weight of that envelope in my hand and feel grateful for the Italian lesson I never wanted but desperately needed. Because in the end, Alessandro was wrong about one thing. He called me a fool for trusting, for believing, for not seeing what was happening right in front of me. But fools don't check pockets. Fools don't read the fine print. Fools don't transform betrayal into benevolence. And fools definitely don't turn an empty boutique into a full life.